Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank Jason and his team for inviting me. It has been a lot of fun so far, and it promises to be more fun. Also, I would like to that you give a little welcome to my team, the Lionfish, who are going to help me. And also, many of you are listening to the translation, but I have seen that many of you, yes, over there the translators, many of you speak and understand English very well. So listen to me. If you can understand the English, it's going to be easier. So, we are here, right? Let me see, where do I push to get the line up there? We are somewhere here, and I have been coming from the other side of the Pacific, from this country, Chile, which is a very long country all along the South America, and I live and work in this city, which is called Coquimbo. Now, do you all know which language we speak in Chile? Spanish, that's right. And so I learned a little bit Chinese these days, and I want you now to learn some Spanish. So, this means good morning. So, now I want you to speak all together. 1, 2, 3. Buenos dias. Okay, and so that during my talk you will not fall asleep. I have some words for you to learn. This one is actually the last word you should learn during this talk, but it's the most important. Because if I speak too long in my talk, and if Sean is showing me the sign, I will hold up this sign, and it means continue. So let's try this. Okay, so I hold up this sign, and you shout as loud as possible. Oh, well, a little bit louder it has to be. So, that's right, so, okay. Now, let's start with the talk. I lost my thing. In Chile, I work as a marine biologist, and I study this floating algae, and we are looking at the animals that live on these floating algae and with the currents are transported along the coast. When we started to do this research some 10 years ago, we also realized that there's not only a lot of floating algae, but also a lot of floating litter. And not only is there a lot of litter floating at sea, but also there's a lot of litter on the shores. So there is a problem. But when we tried to find out what the extent of the problem is and what the cause of the problem is, we realized that there's nothing known about it in Chile and in the South Pacific in general. But if we want to do something about the problem, we need to know. If we want to convince lawmakers, like our president, our former speaker so nicely showed us examples, we need to have facts. We need to know where it's coming from, what it's doing. And I'm a scientist, so I'm interested in helping to get the facts. So then, since our funding is for other stuff, we thought, well, how can we investigate this problem? And we started to work with school kids. And this is another word that you are learning in Spanish, científicos de la basura, that means litter scientists, investigators of litter, of garbage. We started in 2007 in our city in Coquimbo, and we asked very simple questions. What kind of litter is out there? Or, where does it come from? And how can you answer this question, where does this litter come from? Well, you can give very simple answers. For example, is it coming from here, or is it coming from far away? How can you answer that question? And here I would like my helpers to show you some of this litter that we collected yesterday, which has a lot of organisms on it. Can you show this to the other people? Like here, for example, we have oysters growing on the litter. And here we have other, or you can walk around and maybe show it to them. And here I have two lighters. One of the lighters has stuff growing on it and the other lighter doesn't. You can give these lighters later to Dr. Fushida, and here's another piece. So look at the things and you can see that there's marine animals growing on this litter. So that tells you this litter has been passing some time in the sea, because otherwise, how could these marine animals grow on it? If you find other stuff, like for example here, that is clean, no marine animals growing on it, what can you say about it? You can say, this has passed no time in the sea. It has probably been thrown right here on the beach. So yesterday, when you picked up the litter, did you find a lot of litter with marine organisms on it? Or was it all clean like this? Most of the litter that we found was clean. So what can we say? It came from nearby, somewhere here, not from some other country, definitely not. Very little litter, and in Chile that's also the case. Most of the litter is coming from nearby, not from far away. So that's something very important. And then of course we ask other questions, like what can we do? These are more, sorry, oh. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have such a big, strong voice, you can also hear me without the microphone. So, of course, no, it doesn't seem to work, so let me use this other one. Okay, so I'm a little bit tight now, I can't move so much. So, of course, this is one of the most important questions. What can be done? And that's also one of the questions that we try to answer. So with the Científicos de la Basura, with these litter scientists, we have been doing investigations on the litter, what kind of where it's coming from. But in the first year, we have been only doing it here in Coquimbo, in our little city. And we were very ambitious. We wanted to know what's happening in the other parts of Chile, all the way in the north or all the way in the south. So we did this first national sampling where we asked the question, very simple question, which are the cleanest beaches of the Chilean coast? That's what we wanted to know. And we invited schools from all over Chile, the whole country, from the north to the south. And we asked them to sign up and participate in this survey. And since then, since the year 2008, we have been doing this kind of research almost every year, all over the country. And now we have more than 30 schools that regularly participate, and so we can do research between, oh, how do I go back? That way, yeah. So we can do research between latitude 18 and latitude 53. That's a very long distance. It's so long, if you look here at the Chilean coast, this is the distance that we can cover with all these schools. How much is that if we translate this to your part of the world? So if we take this very same scale here and put it here, this is what it looks like. So it's from Russia all the way to southern China. Of course, it's more difficult here because you have many different countries. In Chile it's easier because it's just the same country, just the same language, the same laws, the same school schedule, everything the same. But still it's an important challenge to do that. And so one thing that I wanted to show you, because some of you may do something similar with their schools or maybe in your research project with schools, there are some important steps to be thought of. And those steps are 8. Let me see here where I have my, because I see some of you. So this is the word that now you need to all shout. Very good, very good. So that means 8. So there's 8 steps, and we look at these steps. So the first step, of course, as you all did yesterday, identify the question, contact the schools, motivate them and the students to participate, introduce them to the research and the training, do the sampling in the field, then reflect about the results, and then the scientists, they compile and evaluate all the data, and then they give feedback to the schools. So we will first look at some of these steps here, like for example the motivation step. That's a very important step. So, and what we did for this to motivate the students, we developed these environmental stories, and here I would like my helpers to help me again. Could you show these little booklets to your, like each of you maybe takes one and shows it to the other students? These are little environmental stories that are very simple stories and that basically develop the question and motivate then the research. At the end of the story is, for example, what do you know about the litter on your beaches? And so we use these stories and the kids read them in class. We work with kids from 10 to 15 or 16 years of age. For many of these kids, actually, this is their first own book. Each kid that participates in the sampling can keep the copy, bring it to their house, share it with their family and friends. So that's the first part, motivating them about the problem. Then we have very simple working guides where here the students read different roles before we start the action. Then the working guides are very simple, like for example here you can see the ocean, the road, and there's very simple sampling schemes, very simple data table where they enter the data just like what you did yesterday. And then we go to the sampling site in the field, we do a little last reflection, and then we do the research, and their teamwork is very important. Like all of you yesterday worked as a team, that's what we also do in this research. And then we go back to the lab, the students enter all their data in the computer, and they can, with the very simple steps, they can make these interactive figures where they can see the results from the other schools in the country. So they can compare their results with other schools. They can see our beaches are clean compared to all the other beaches in the country, or just the other way around. So this kind of figures on the data, on the computer, interactive data, basically helps them to reflect, to compare. And so, these are the ocho steps, right? Once you have that, and you have this network, you can actually ask relevant questions that will be of interest also to the lawmakers and to the general public. And so the results that we obtain are of very high interest to the general public, and we spread it to the media. And we also even, since all the schools followed the same way of sampling, these data are very powerful. They are rigorous scientific data. So no lawmaker or no politicians can come and say, oh, this is just so-so talk. No, it's really hard data, it's scientific evidence, and we can make strong claims with that. And we also use these data to publish them, because as you all know, newspapers are today and tomorrow there's other news. But if we have a scientific publication, that will stay and it will not go away. And you can always come back to this scientific publication. So it's very important to have good data. So let's look at some results. So the first question, like we had said, was which are the most dirty or most clean beaches? And this is what we find. We are looking here at litter that we found in other research floating at sea and litter on the beaches. And just look at the black stuff. The black here is plastic. So you see there's a lot of plastic, more plastic at sea than on the beaches. Here, there's less plastic on the beaches. And on the beaches, we also found a lot of glass and metal. And you also know that glass and metal, does it float or does it sink? It usually sinks, unless, of course, it's a bottle with air. So if we find a lot of glass and metal on the beaches, that means it did not come floating by the ocean, but it probably was dropped right on the beach. So there's another line of evidence that shows us that most of the litter here on the beaches in Chile comes from people who go to the beach. So an important lesson is the garbage, the litter comes from the beach users. So that's one very important thing to know, because now we know where to act. We cannot point somewhere else to other countries. We have to solve the problem in Chile. And then we also wanted to know, what do people think about all this? And we did a national survey where the school kids went to their cities and asked the people certain questions about the litter. And I will just show you a few of these questions. So for example, how many times do you drop garbage on your local beaches? So if I ask you, have you ever in your life dropped litter on a beach? Who can say yes? Raise your hand. Who is lying? Raise your hand. Okay, so you can see this is a question where I thought this question makes no sense, because nobody will say, yes, I did it. Yeah, maybe. So we gave them these options. We said, never, never, I never did that. Almost never, exceptionally, sometimes or frequently. Oh, so here's another word to learn, because never, oops, this is too much cable. Here, this, another word. So look at the word and, yeah, that means never. So you can all say, yeah, you never did that, I know. And of course I know, I'm sure that you never will do it from now on. So, but let's see what the result was from Chile. So this was the result. Indeed, many people said never, nunca, but there were a lot of people that said, yes, they did it at some point. First I thought, oh my gosh, this is terrible. But then I realized it's not so bad, because those people here, they admit that they are part of the problem. They say, I do it. And you can say, well, if you do it, change. Don't do it. But if the people say, no, not me, then what can you do? You can't say anything to them because they never did anything bad. So, very important result also. Then we asked the people, what do you think is the best solution to solve this problem? And most people, or many people, said education. You need to educate the people about the problem. That's one of the answers that we received mostly. And then we asked them, so if somebody does it, somebody drops garbage on the beach, should you give them a fine? And what do you think was the response? Yes. Yes. Indeed. Let me see. Oh, yes. So there's another word that you have to learn. See. Exactly. See. Means? Yes. Very good, very good. You are learning. So, see, after my talk, we can speak in Spanish. So, as you can see, most of the people indeed said, yes, they should receive a fine. In fact, very interesting, because remember, 40% of the people, more than 40% said they had in the past dropped garbage on the beach. Now some of them say, oh yes, you need to pay a fine if you do that. So, of course, the next question that we asked, if they say yes, a fine, how much? How much should they pay? So, 30,000 pesos, which is a lot of money in Chile, is about 60 US dollars. So a person like that was like almost 1,000 people, and the average is 60 US dollars. So it's a lot of money. This was a very important result, and we put it out to the newspapers, and there were a lot of lawmakers and politicians who said, oh, look at that. Our people are concerned about this problem. And so then several lawmakers generated an initiative. We didn't have anything to do with that. We didn't talk to any lawmakers. The only thing that we did is we presented our results these scientific results, to the newspapers. We shared it with the media, with the people. And then these lawmakers, surprised to us, I didn't think about that, they came up and they made an addition to the law. There's, of course, environmental laws, but they made an addition to the law which specifically said that anybody who drops litter on the beach has to pay a lot of money, and even more than the 60 US dollars. So if you come ever to Chile and you drop garbage on the beach, be careful. It can be very expensive. So, let's see what we find if we do research on marine litter with litter scientists. First of all, we see that litter has local sources in Chile, and we have also seen that yesterday in Taiwan. So the action, you need to do local action. Then we can see that the information has been shared with the society, so people know about it. And also, this is the other important thing, scientific data are available. Lawmakers, of course, they react to public pressure. If it's in the newspapers, they react. But if you can furthermore support it with scientific evidence, they will have no way to back up. So it's important to have the scientific evidence. Oops, I pressed the wrong button, and now I pressed another button, and now it doesn't go forward. Yes, I know, but I press it and nothing happens. I pressed exit. Let me see. No. Technology. It's not my strength. Let me try. No. maybe. Oh. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So is this another important thing? Oh, well, I mean, you can see what's here on the bottom. More than 5,000 school children during the past years learned about the problem, and that's important. Because students, they do science, they understand how the scientific process works, they transmit their results to the general public, to their families, and they also search for solutions. That's the other important thing. And always we do things like, for example, we have these bags, so every student not only takes home the little storybook, but they also take home things like this, which they can put to use in their families for shopping. Because one important solution to the plastic bag problem is that you give people a way that they can avoid the plastic bags. If you have these bags and if you get people to use them, using this kind of bag is cool. Okay? So use them, and if you get people convinced that it's cool, then they will do it, probably more than if you have laws and things like that. So marine litter, what can be done? A lot of things can be done, but some very simple steps. Get citizens involved, young citizens, and then keeping the environment clean must be a daily habit. It's not going to be just one beach cleanup solves the world or solves the problem. It's a daily thing. Just like every day you brush your teeth and you wash your body, keeping the environment clean is something that you do every day. It's never going to stop. And since you do it every day, it better be fun. That's the other important thing. It should be fun. And I'm very glad the presentation that we saw before, I saw a lot of people on these slides that you showed that had a lot of fun. And for me, this is an important thing. This is something that should be fun. And let's see. You can also do something, all of you. And I know that all of you are already thinking, what are you doing this afternoon? Some of you have already good plans, good ideas. And so, the last word that you learn, vamos. Vamos. Let's go. Okay, thank you very much.
好，那接下来是问答时间，你想要提出问题，想要问吗？
That was fantastic, Martin. Thank you. Really interesting. How much data do you need